Stephen Ruth is going to be calling in a little bit. Hopefully, he's got a pretty busy day today, but he said he'd try and call in. And basically, he's going to be talking about his whole fight against the government and their tax system that's been literally killing people. If you don't know his story, he's kind of known as the Red Light Robin Hood, and he started by uploading some videos where he kind of goes around and he has a broom and he's pushing the camera so it can't take any pictures that are worth anything. And so he ended up cutting some of the power cables to some of the cameras, and I'll let him tell the whole story, but basically he was doing this because these traffic lights were causing people to get into accidents. They were trying to beat the lights. The government they have these government standards of how long a yellow light is supposed to be. And the city that he's in was making those shorter than normal, which is, this is normal. Like this happens all over the country. But in his particular city, they were making them so short, it was causing accidents. People were dying, like pedestrians were getting run over. It was just crazy. And so he was fighting this whole thing. And of course, the government doesn't like it when you threaten their revenue stream. So basically, they charged him with like some insane number of charges. That if they stuck, he would have spent the rest of his life in prison. But so yeah, thankfully they from what I understand, they gave him a plea deal, which was pretty shady. But they're still operating the way that they were. People are still getting in. Oh, sorry, you're still looking. I'm gonna switch back over to my camera. Sorry. And check this out. I got this cool new microphone over here. So hopefully I sound better than I normally do. Survey says taxation is theft. Yes. Barbara can't hear anything. Hopefully that was from a minute ago when my sound was off. So Stephen Ruth is coming on, and actually, so I was thinking about this, and now, if you know me, you know I don't like Hillary Clinton, but there were a lot of people, especially libertarian. I mean, a lot of them were Trump supporters, and then there were a lot of Gary Johnson supporters, libertarians, and everything, and they were saying things like, you should not be able to run for president if you're being investigated for a felony or something like this. And of course, I was like, I'll like and share any comment like that because, I didn't want her to win. But in reality, that's a really horrible policy. And I said it then, and, like I just said, this isn't to support Hillary, because there's no way in hell I would want her to win. But we have to consider the same thing happening with people like Stephen. So Stephen was facing what were probably felony charges, and he was running for office. I think it was state senate. I'll have to check with him on that. But if that same rule, so this is the thing. Like, we're the party of policy, and I say we as a libertarian, even though I'm kind of, if you know me, I'm kind of sometimes in, sometimes out. But the party of principle, the libertarians especially, if you come up with a rule, it has to apply equally to everybody, right? So if Hillary Clinton can't run for president because she's got, she's under investigation for a felony, and at that time there were, no charges filed or anything. It was just an investigation. As corrupt as that was, and as guilty as she is, it's not a conviction. And we have the rule of law with due process, which most libertarians support, and so we have Stephen Ruth, who basically, he was in the same situation. And so Stephen Ruth is on the other side. He's fighting against corruption. And think about this. Okay, you have a corrupt government, right? Let's say you have a good guy. Let's say it's Ron Paul, and he's running for office. If the only thing you had to do was investigate them for a felony, and all of a sudden they can't run anymore, everyone at the IRS would be like, oh yes, we have a pending investigation against Ron Paul, and that's it. He's excluded, right? So just think about that. next time you hear someone say something about Hillary shouldn't have run, but I mean, yeah, she shouldn't have, but she shouldn't have because she should have been in prison a long time ago. Okay, so how much is the tax on the merch? There is no tax on the merch. If there is a tax, well, you don't pay any tax on the merch. Let's put it that way. Because taxation is theft, and I don't want to rob you guys. We get robbed, but not much we can do about that until we make some bigger changes. If I'm gonna call it TIT Radio, can I at least put some memes? I can put this up for a minute. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll get some memes in here. I'll get some memes going. So as far as Steven goes, it's still kind of a maybe at this point. So I've got my fingers crossed. He said he had a lot of let's just say legal obligations today. So hopefully all is going well with him, and we don't have to worry about anything. But I just want to don't get too hopeful if he doesn't show up. But we are going to continue the show anyway and talk about taxes and roads, of course, and anything else you guys want to talk about. Somebody said last time I didn't say taxation is theft enough on the show. So now I got this thing on the screen, so it's just always there. And yes, my middle name is Taxation is Theft, according to Facebook. And so I tried to change my middle name to Taxation is Theft, and on Facebook, and they said that I had to send in a copy of my ID. So of course I did a little bit of Photoshop work and sent that in, and it worked for about a month. But I think somebody ratted me out, so I tried submitting it again and it didn't work. But yes, Taxation is Theft. I can't say it enough. So Facebook has this weird thing where it's kind of difficult to see the comments at the same time, and I think I just crashed my browser. Okay, yeah, that's annoying. Oh, hey, look. Now, is this working? I don't know, maybe not. Okay, so about roads and government services. So somebody said to me the other day, you need taxes to fund a government. And this goes back to, the question of whether or not okay, let's assume for a minute that you need taxes to fund to fund the government. Let's assume that's correct for a second. That does not change the fact that taxation is theft. What you're really saying is theft is necessary to fund the government, which is okay. So I mean that's basically what you're saying. So anyone who says that taxation is whatever, it's necessary, it's the price we pay to live in a civilized society, is basically saying that theft is necessary to live in a civilized society, or theft is necessary to fund government. And so I brought this question up, and of course, there's never any response to this, but hopefully at least it gets them thinking. So how would government raise money, assuming government is legitimate and you have to have government, how would government raise money if there were no taxes? And the answer is just like everybody else, through voluntary exchange. I pointed out that Google is worth, I don't know how many billions of dollars, probably like $500 billion or something like that, which is more than some small countries are worth. I'll have to do some research and find out exactly how many. But Google raised all this money through voluntary exchange. They provided a valuable service to somebody, to a lot of people, and in exchange for that valuable service, those people were happy to give them lots of money. So Google was able to raise enough money to run a country through voluntary exchange. So the real question is, why can't government do that? Why is government's only way of raising money through theft? And so this is a question I like to ask the road builders, because it's a difficult one to answer for them, but hopefully at least it gets them thinking, to where we can start coming up with solutions. Because the reality is, what is, we do have all these different things that we're used to having, whether it's police, courts, fire departments, all these government services. We're used to having them, and we're used to getting them paid for by taxes. So the question is, if people want those and people want to continue to have those, that's fine. But we have to figure out some way that they can have those without having to steal money from people. That's because really, ultimately, that's the main issue. People who don't like taxes, it's not that they hate the fire department. They might hate the police, but only because the police go around taxing and killing. But they don't hate hospitals, which some are owned by government. They don't hate all these government services. They don't necessarily hate them. They just hate the fact that they're funded through theft. So of course, once we realize that this is theft. Once they realize that this is theft, then hopefully we can start, you can't answer a question until you ask it. So how do you pay for these things without taxes? That's the entry point into the conversation of coming up with these ways. So with roads specifically, if somebody asks you, okay, well, how am I going to pay for the roads? Well, that's kind of a loaded question, because it's not a simple answer, and as soon as you start explaining to it, their eyes are just going to glaze over and they're not going to hear anything you say, because there's a million ways to do it depending on what type of road it is. It's kind of like, how do you build a place to live in? Well, are you talking about a house? Are you talking about a condo, an apartment? Is it a cabin in the woods? How do you build this? The blueprints are completely different depending on what you're actually trying to build. So when it comes to roads, you've got neighborhood roads, which only serve the people who actually live in that neighborhood. You've got interstate roads that are mostly used by trucking companies that carry large amounts of whatever from place to place. And you've got commercial roads that mostly go around like malls, amusement parks, those type of things. And all those different roads have different ways of paying for them. So to get into a discussion with somebody about how do you actually pay for the roads is really kind of futile, because they're not really going to get it. What's really more important is that you get them to start thinking for themselves. Okay, is there any way that you can come up with raising money that doesn't involve theft? And I think that's a more important question for some of these people. Okay, I'm going to read some comments. I hate roads. Amgary reacts only. I don't know what that is. Taxes, theft, yes, definitely. Hey, Jose, what's going on, man? I haven't talked to you in a long time. You got to come down and see me in Mexico. I'm seeing some old friends pop up on here from a while ago. All right, so hey, Jose, you know what else? Taxation is theft, but the police have no balls. Inside joke from way back. Cause yeah, I've been giving cops a hard time for a very long time. Let's see. I'm gonna see if there's any other comments over here, because Facebook was like hiding them from me last time. So does anybody have any questions about taxes or how to troll your IRS agent? Actually, so that's a somebody came up with a question about audits, and I got to do some more research on this, but maybe someone of you out there knows. So with an audit, basically you file your taxes and you tell them how much you made, or you don't file your taxes. That's actually another interesting point. You can never get audited if you don't pay your taxes, if you don't file, because an audit is basically a discrepancy on the actual filing. If you don't file, but you work for somebody who basically files and reports your income, the IRS will do a substitute file for you, which basically means you don't get any deductions or anything. They give you the standard deduction. They add in all the money that they know that you earned, and they send you a bill for it. And that's a substitute file. And you can't get audited on that, although you can dispute it and refile a proper one. But anyway, so going back to my point about the audit, so let's say you file and they want to dispute it for whatever reason. Supposedly they say it's random, but we all and actually they've admitted that they do take some high profile cases to make examples of people, and I think Wesley Snipes was probably one of them. So with an audit, basically what they're doing is they're coming along and saying, we don't believe, I don't know if you can hear, sorry. Okay, so with an audit, you're basically, what the IRS is basically saying is, okay, you submitted this thing saying how much you earn and how much you're going to pay, and we're disputing that. Now, remember, you have your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights against searches and seizures and not testifying against yourself. But does that exist with the IRS? And so some people will say, and especially the IRS will say in their favor, when you filed your taxes, you filled out that 1040 form, you signed that under penalty of perjury, right? Which basically means if you lied, it's a felony. Now, of course, the IRS lies all the time, but that's none of my business. Sips tea. Okay, so when the IRS sends you notice of audit, I have heard that some people say basically, are you accusing me of a crime? And what is your evidence to accuse me of that crime? Basically the same thing. Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? Because in an audit, what they want to do is they want to get all of your documents, all of your receipts, and they want you to prove that what you wrote in your, in your deductions or the amount of your income, they want you to prove that that's all correct. Now, if this were a normal crime, if let's say something were stolen from a house, the police would come to you and they can't just say, we're going to search your house to see if the stolen property is here. They have to have probable cause that you are the person who stole that property before they can get into your house and search for it, right? So when the IRS wants to audit you, what is their probable cause that you lied? Now, if you're being randomly audited, this is as much as the police randomly picking a house and saying, well, let's go see if the stolen stuff is in there. That doesn't make any sense, right? So like I said, I've never been audited. I'm sure I will this year or next year after doing this show and putting this page up. But I have heard of some people basically refusing an audit this way, and so I'm interested to hear if there's anybody out there who has tried that or has done it, has had any success with it, or maybe knows someone that can call in and talk about it, because I think that's really, because we all kind of know that this whole tax system is a scam, but at what length does that scam does it break? Like, at what point can you say, we have a rule here that, of course they'll call it a loophole, a tax loophole, and they'll demonize you for it. But at what point can you say, no, I'm not going to play by your rules anymore. I'm not going to play your stupid little game anymore, and have a way out of it? Because this goes back to the idea that if you can refuse to give the government money, then you can you have control over the government. If you can refuse to go to a restaurant because you don't like the way that they serve their food, you have control over that restaurant. I mean, no restaurant stays in business that serves shitty food because nobody goes to give them their money. And so if you can do the same with government, they're either going to have to shut down, or they're going to have to, start figuring out how to come up with better customer service and giving you your money's worth. John Miller just met with a CPA for my taxes and told her taxation is theft. Felt great. Hey, I was thinking about getting these little placards that go on your desk. Like where it says like CPA, certified public accountant, whatever, with your name and everything on it. That you could give to your accountants and stick on their desk. I thought that would be pretty awesome. But how do freedom-minded people find common ground with statists and have a conversation? James, that's a great question. And that's actually something I advocate for, because I know a lot of people, especially on Facebook, and it's not just the freedom-minded people, whether they're libertarians or anarchists. It's the statists do the same thing. They do the same thing between each other. They block each other, and this is the worst thing that you can do. This is completely counterproductive. And I know it's like, I know the argument is, I don't need that negative energy in my life, I'm going to block them out. But the fact is, when you block people out like that, you have just totally ended any chance that you have of getting through to them with any kind of discussion. So I definitely recommend not doing that, and talk to these people. Like I've talked to some people that I had a really deep conversation with a girl who was very pro Bernie Sanders. She wanted the tuition-free college. She's like maybe early 20s, and she's she's dealing with having to go to school and student loans and all this other stuff. And so she's like, she's heard the horror stories already. She doesn't want to take on $500,000 in debt so that she can get a $50,000 a year job and take 30 years paying off her student loan, or spending more time paying off that than a house. So people who have different opinions from you usually have legitimate concerns. I mean, people who voted for Trump or people who voted for Hillary, they all have legitimate concerns, and they're concerns that they just have a different way of addressing because they have access to different information and they've been conditioned to think a different way. And so if you really want to have a discussion with people, and this is what I like about the Libertarian Party mostly is, and it's not everyone in the Libertarian Party, but it is a lot of them. They're more likely to have an open discussion with you about, and like I said, this is not everybody, because there are some really closed-minded, shut-off people in the Libertarian Party. Some of them are libertarians or anarchists, but they're very closed-minded, and my way is the right way. But you also have a lot of people who are there because they've come from the Republican Party, and they're like, no, this isn't right. I'm gonna figure something better out. So they come to the Libertarian Party, and then of course some of the Libertarians are like, oh, you're a Republican, we don't like you, and then they try and block them out. And I think this is all counterproductive. We do need to have open conversations with each other, because this is how we actually get stuff done. We make fun of Congress for never getting anything done because they're always fighting with each other, and yet we're doing the same thing outside. So while I do think I'm right about everything, I do like to have conversations with people and find out what they think and what their concerns are, instead of trying to just force my opinion down their throat. So back to this girl who was concerned about the college tuition thing. I basically I sat with her and talked, 15 minutes to half an hour about inflation and how that works, and how the housing crisis of 2008 was basically due to inflation from overlending. And at the end of that conversation, she really started to get that, and she saw that the problem was not that these big, rich, evil people wouldn't give her enough money so that she could go to college, and then they were charging her interest on it. The problem was that these big, rich, evil people were giving everybody so much money that it was jacking up the price of college and making it too hard for her to afford to actually just get a job and pay for it. And so once she saw that, she understood, okay, yeah, now I understand a lot more why student loan programs are so bad in the first place. Of course, she's still stuck in the position, well, if I refuse to get a student loan, everybody else is still getting them, which means they're still jacking up the price of college, which means I can't go because either I have to get a student loan or I have to, I have to pay for it myself, or just not go because I don't have the money. So you're really stuck in that position. But at least now that she understands this, she can say, okay, when somebody's on TV running for an office saying we're going to give out millions and billions of dollars for college tuition, she can at least say, no, that's a bad idea. That's going to make the cost of tuition go up. Because at the end of the day, there are only X number of seats in all of the colleges across the country. And if you give more money to people because it's like, oh, these people can't get into college because they can't afford it, let's give them money. Well, if you give them more money, all you're doing is that you're putting different people in those same seats. And yeah, there might be some people who are poorer and smarter who need to be in those seats, but you also have scholarship programs, and you also have colleges that use, what's it called? Your academic skills as a guide of whether or not you should get in. So even if everybody can afford to get in, they only pick the brightest students to get in. And this goes to the same thing. Okay, yeah, but then you're not letting the dumber kids have access to college. Not to call anyone dumb, but that's basically what you're saying. And okay, yeah, that's true, but at the same time, so the people who can really take advantage of college and really make a difference in this world so that we can all live better should not have access to college because you want somebody who's less talented to get in. It doesn't make too much sense. And there are also plenty of other opportunities. Like, it's like not everybody has to go to rocket science college or to be a lawyer. And there are plenty of idiots who go through law school to become lawyers. There are all kinds of other schools. I myself am a computer programmer, and I went to college a little bit and wasn't working out for me. Everything that I use and know in my life today, in my earning a living and all that, is stuff that I learned on my own through books and internet. So, there's plenty of information. There's trade schools, there's apprenticeships, there's so many different ways you can learn to make a living without having to go to college. So really, as a society, I think we're just putting way too much emphasis on college in the first place. But anyway, I went off on a total tangent on that. All right, let me see if there's any other comments in here. I see a laughy cryy face. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to put this back up for a second because I want to talk about this. Let's see. Where is it? Okay, so this is some of the stuff that I sell on the Taxation Stuff website. So these cards, what I'm working on doing right now, and hopefully I'll have all you guys supporting this, is what I want to do is I want to build a sort of a sponsorship platform where you sponsor a politician and we send them a postcard every single day. So these postcards right here, they're coming up in a second. They're big postcards that say taxation is theft. Here's one that a lot of people thought it was from their dentist, the one with the dogs. There's the other one that says taxation is theft with the tax form in the back. There's another one that we're designing right now that says, it looks like a big, like a fire sale that says, up to 50% off your income when you pay income taxes. So basically what I want to do with these is I want to send out one every day to certain politicians. And what we'll do is we'll have a platform where you can select which politicians you want cards to go for. So if you're somebody who wants to pay for the cards, you can pay for the cards. If you can't afford a card and you just want to send a message, or if you just want to send one, then you can certainly do that. And so what we'll do is we'll actually, you might say, okay, I can pay for 50 or 100 cards to go to a specific candidate for, which will cover like 3 or 4 months. And so if you want to do that, but you don't want to sit there writing all the messages to go on all those, then what you can do is you can sponsor them, and we'll send them, as we'll let other people basically write in those messages, and we'll put them on the cards that you paid for, and we'll send those in to all the politicians. So the idea is, if we can, we'll start with the big ones. Like, let's see if we can get President Trump with a taxation and theft card in his mailbox every day. And of course, most of these people don't read their own mail, but we'll see what we can do with that. Maybe their secretaries read it, and maybe it starts some talk around the office, and maybe it works its way up. Who knows? It's kind of experimental, but I think it does have, it's better than nothing, right? So then we can also work with some of the smaller local candidates too. Those candidates, like if you talk about your state House of Representatives or your state senators, that you've probably got more chance where they're actually going to see some of the cards. So that's great too. But yeah, I mean, look, we always see these things that are like, hey, get politically active, send a postcard to your congressman, and nobody ever really does it, because what would I write? What would I say? And so this kind of helps you pick a message and send that out. And I know there are a lot of people who have been elected to different offices who do believe that taxation is theft. So I don't think it's totally going to get lost in the void. But like I said, the more people who see it and hear the message, the more chance we have to actually do something with it. Let's see. I'm going to go see if I can. Marlene tuned in from Austin. Hey, Marlene, how's it going? Can we have public schools without taxation? Yes, absolutely. Public schools. Okay, so, let's go back a little bit. First of all, we have to understand which taxes pay for public schools. It's not income tax. Income tax pays for zero public schools. Well, okay, there's a lot to this. So first of all, we have to look at how much money is being spent on public schools. Then we have to consider the fact that, 50% of it probably is waste. And so if you can say, okay, well, let's get rid of 50% of what we're spending on education that's not getting there, then okay, fine. It's easier to pay for now that you got rid of 50% of it, right? Okay, now let's look at some of the other places where we're wasting money. I think they say it costs $30,000 a year to educate one student, but it costs $90,000 a year to keep one person in prison for a couple of possession of marijuana charges. There's a big one right there. They say we've got what, 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prison population. That's a lot of our people who are sitting in prison for bullshit. Let them out, cut the cost of that. Now, of course, you've got private prisons who are making money off of all this, so they're not going to be too happy about us reforming those laws. But ending the drug war is a good start. Plenty of ways to get a lot of those people out of prison who really don't need to be there. That's more money that you could then take over and put into education. Now, like I said, income tax, none of that money goes to education. Now, here's another problem with education. You have states who are taxing their own people, and they're sending that money to the federal government to fund the Federal Department of Education. The Federal Department of Education is basically this big bureaucracy that tells all these different states what they have to teach their students, which doesn't make any sense because they've literally been making people dumber by all statistics over the past, century since they've been around. And so this department is basically sucking money out of the education system, and then they take all this money and then they suck it out and then they give money back. So it's like, why don't the states just keep the money on their own? Like, why are they sending it here to be laundered and then getting it back? It doesn't make any sense. It makes about as much sense as anyone who works for the government paying taxes. It's like, hey, we're going to give you a check. Oh, just kidding. I'm taking half of that back. It doesn't make any sense. So, okay. Before income tax, we had schools and roads, by the way, but we had schools. And so, okay, so how do you pay for these schools if you don't have any taxes, right? So right now, those schools are paid for mostly with property tax. And there's a lot of issues with that. But the probably the most important thing to say is that if you weren't paying all these taxes, you'd have a lot more money to spend on education. So would there be public schools? There wouldn't be, obviously, government schools that are paid for with taxes. But you have to consider that there are plenty of people who actually invest money in educating people. You look at all these tech companies who do scholarships. Why do they do scholarships? Because they need, look at Google, Microsoft. They do scholarships because they need bright engineers to go to their companies to do all the sophisticated technical work that they need to do. Look at these private investors who are funding things like SpaceX and Tesla. There is an incentive for private money to go into educating the public. Look at what's it called? What's that channel that Sesame Street is on? That does receive government subsidies, but they also raise money through fundraising, through donations and that sort of thing. And so this is basically, I know, that channel, I think it's PBS, is not, it's not a school. You don't want to make your kids sit in front of it for, 6 hours a day and do whatever. But it is an educational tool, and you consider how much education and what type of tools we have on the internet, like Khan Academy, and all these other things that are free. They're basically they're public education. Now they're not provided by the government. There's no official enrollment and this sort of thing, which is part of the problem, in my opinion. There might not be a certificate of graduation. Maybe there is. Maybe they don't have as much accreditation as a regular school, but it's public education. I mean, it's out there and it's free for anybody to go and get, and it doesn't require going out and stealing money from people to pay for it, which is probably the best part. But yeah, I mean, we really have to look at these things because the public school system itself, it doesn't work. I mean, you stick a bunch of kids in classrooms. If you're lucky, you get good teachers because there's only so many of them, but there's like millions and millions of these kids. Some of the good teachers don't want to teach anymore because the kids are crazy, or because there's too many of them and they can't handle them. So it's you don't get to pick your teachers. In a private school system, you get to pick all your teachers, right? So I don't know. There's a million reasons to go more towards private, but if you have a sort of public-private thing like Khan Academy, I mean, let's say you have Khan Academy and, let's say they have another one. I'm sure they have others out there. If one of them is bad, you're going to go to the other one. If the other one is bad, you're going to go back to the first one. And they're going to be competing with each other to say, oh, I'm going to make mine better so I have more students in mine, so I have better bragging rights, so that, whatever they'll figure out some sort of revenue stream for it, whether it's donations or whatever. That is going to increase based on the number of students they have. So there is an incentive for them to basically create better education. And they're doing that already. I mean, the students that are coming out of these are, they're smarter. I've seen tons of statistics on how well students do in public versus private schools or even charter schools. And it's no comparison. The public schools are just completely failing. And a lot of it has to do with all the bureaucracy and the wasted money and all this other stuff. It's just a really bad system. Anyway, Marlene, hopefully that answered your question. Let's see, what else do we have here? By the way, I just wanted to say something real quick because I don't know if I've said this before or not.
Taxation is theft.
Okay, I just had to throw that back in there because someone said I don't say that enough. Okay, so let me see if I can find some other questions, comments. PBS, yes, that one. Charter schools, that's what's up. Cut funding to sports, yes. Crystal, yes. Definitely. So we have basically our government taking all this money that they steal from us to give to sports teams, and most of them are horrible. I'm not going to mention any names, but I don't follow sports at all, so I probably wouldn't even know which ones are horrible. But government, okay, so all these NFL, NBA, like all these huge mega corporations are making billions of dollars, enough to pay their players millions of dollars, like per game, right? And so they make all this money. They couldn't make this money if they didn't have stadiums, right? Which, by the way, you build a stadium and then you make like $20 a beer, for every beer you sell, and then you have people go in there like me who only go there for the beer because I have absolutely no interest in the game. You probably make like $1 billion every game from merchandise and beer and popcorn and everything else that's overpriced, right? I'm exaggerating. Okay, some people call me on my exaggerations. It's not $1 billion. I'm exaggerating. They make lots of money, enough to pay for their stadiums. But why build a stadium? Why pay for a stadium if you can get one for free? So what cities do is they say, oh, well, we have all this money that we collected from taxes. We stole it. And let's see, our economy would do better if we had a sports team. So we're going to build the stadium, and hopefully we'll convince one of these teams to say, well, let's see if there's any free stadiums on the market. Oh, look, right there. There's one. And they just built it, and it's brand new, and it's all paid for. And let's move our team to that city. And, because it's got a bigger stadium, we'll sell more beer and we'll make more profit, right? So basically, the city steals from the taxpayers and gives a huge, valuable piece of property to a sports team so that they can, continue to profit without having to bear any of the expenses like a normal business would have to. I mean, if I wanted to start a business, I would either have to build the store or I'd have to rent one from somewhere, right? Why does it make any sense that these businesses that are already hugely successful should be able to get away scot-free and not have to pay for any of that stuff? That's yes, Crystal, that is an excellent example of government waste. If everyone gets on board, our voice can't be ignored. That is absolutely correct. I think that was in reference to those cards. Yeah, let's send 1 billion of them. So yeah, like I said, those cards, I'm working on the website right now so we can get that up so we can start sending cards like that. But that's going to be, hopefully that'll turn into a huge deal. Let's see. I have to pop over between different pages because comments show up in different places. I don't know if I ever mentioned how much I hate Facebook, but yeah, yeah, don't get me started. Okay, let's see. I think that's about it. I still see, let's see. So I haven't heard anything from Steven yet. I'm assuming he probably got tied up with whatever stuff he was involved in. I don't want to get too much into broadcasting his personal business, but hopefully he'll tell us all about it, and hopefully we'll schedule another show where maybe he's got less to do and he'll be able to call in, and we'll get him on here. I know some of you guys wanted to ask him some questions. And again, if you don't know Steven, he is, let me see actually, I thought I had some video. Basically, he's, I'll post some videos in the comments for this video. You'll have to go back to the original page where the original Taxation is Theft page, which is facebook.com/taxation is theft 2, because the first one was already taken. I'll post a link to some videos down there and some more information about Steven. But yeah, I mean, he's I don't know how this started. Maybe he got like a ticket from a red light camera. Actually, here, let me talk about this for a minute. So Steven, he basically said, this is illegal what you guys are doing. You're causing more accidents. People are getting hurt and killed, and you're costing, thousands or millions of dollars in car accidents and all this other stuff. Just so you guys can make, issue a bunch of tickets and make some money. So he said that's not cool. So he started cutting the cameras so that they couldn't give out tickets. He did this to a bunch of them. He wasn't shy about it. He broadcasted himself doing it on Facebook Live, where he was messing with the cameras. He's like, "This is me." He knew the cops were probably gonna come and find him after this, but he did it anyway. And when he was running, when he was running for office, he basically, he had police and EMTs and everybody else who had his back, and they said, "Yeah, this guy's right. You are literally causing accidents by having these cameras up because you're shortening the yellow lights." The cameras alone freak people out and they make them act a little bit erratically, and that causes accidents. But shortening the yellow lights that just multiplies it by 10. So he's out there fighting this. And so I asked him, I used to live in Los Angeles, which is why I have this shirt actually, which says, "God bless America, except California." I can say that because I'm from there. So right around the time that I left Los Angeles, we were starting to do this thing where people would get red light tickets in the mail, and we started to figure out that you have the right to due process, right? So if you get a ticket in the mail, you have not been served, right? If somebody wants to sue you, the sheriff has to come to your house. The rules are different in every state, but in California, the sheriff has to come to your house and serve you with a letter, right? That says this is a notice to appear in court. In lieu of that, because what happens is let's say you're speeding and you get stopped, you have not been served because you have to have a warrant or some court order to serve somebody, right? So what's actually happening here? And it's, like I said, varies from state to state. In California, what's literally happening is a police officer says, "You broke the law. I have probable cause to arrest you. I can arrest you, or you can sign this ticket." So by signing this ticket, you are entering into a contract agreeing to appear, and in lieu of going to jail and having to go through all that process. They could just arrest you. But it's not about that. It's about money, right? So they just want to give you a ticket, send you on your way, go catch the next guy because they can catch, 10 times as many people that way. Now, a failure to appear is a breach of contract. So failure to appear is in itself not a crime. It's a breach of contract, which is a civil issue, right? Anyway, long story short, back to the red light cameras. If you get one in the mail, you haven't been served, you haven't signed anything agreeing to appear, so they can't give you a failure to appear, right? Failure to appear is when they issue a warrant and whatever else. They're going to suspend your license and all this. Okay, the thing with the red light tickets is this is a debt, and this goes back into, you'll probably hear me talk about this a lot, the Federal Debt Collections and Practices Act, Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act. I can't talk. So there are laws, there are some laws that actually protect the citizens against big evil government and corporations. Very few, relatively, but there are a couple, and the Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act is one of them. And what this says is basically, if someone owes someone money, like if you owe me money, I can't call you up and then threaten to break your legs or make you swim with the fishes or whatever else. And there's some very strict laws in place, and they make it very easy to sue somebody for it's like an easy example is if you tell somebody, "Hey, I'm not going to pay you the money I owe you unless you can prove that I owe it to you," and they don't prove it, and then they continue to call you anyway. Every single time they call you is worth $1,000 in court. And yeah, I've actually done this before, and it's pretty fun and pretty easy. But so back to the cameras. It's really the same kind of thing. If you get a ticket in the mail, you haven't been served, you haven't signed a promise to appear, what are you going to do about it? Throw it in the trash. You can do the same thing with jury duty. They say like, I wish I had one. I've got one around here somewhere. Jury duty summons from California that says in real small print, because they want to intimidate you into going. It says, if you don't appear, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is what most people think it says. If you don't appear, you're going to be fined $10,000. What it really says is, in small print, something like, if you don't appear, a court may issue a summons, and then big print, fine of $10,000, right? It's when you look at it and you read the fine print, you realize what they're trying to do. They're trying to intimidate you. Throw them in the trash. I do this all the time. I've never been summoned because it's not about that. They know they're not. If they can't get you to show up for jury duty, they're not going to get you to show up for anything else. And if they can't actually find you and hand something to you, like the sheriff comes to your door and you don't open it, like they can't do anything. They can't start confiscating your property because there's no due process, right? So it's not a good way for them to make money. So they just don't. They just don't do it. So sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place here, but there's just like so much information around this. Anyway, so same thing with the red light cameras. Throw your tickets in the trash, right? You never have to go pay them. Because you don't have any contract with the government that says you're going to participate in any kind of court hearing or ritual or anything else. And you have no obligation to go. You haven't been served. There is no due process. And so they can't, they make it sound like if you don't show up that you're going to be found guilty automatically and that they're just going to go in and take your money. But they can't. And they can't because, for one thing, the Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act, but also because of due process laws and all this other stuff. And I've actually sent letters to the government basically, saying, hey, Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act, you can't do that. I never want to hear from you again. And for the most part, I never hear from them again. There's actually one, I've got a traffic ticket that I never paid from Texas that's floating around. And every 6 months, I get a letter from a different law firm saying, hey, we're trying to collect on this. And I just tell them, I'm not going to pay it because there's nothing valid about it, and it disappears, and then it shows up from another law firm because I can't sue a different law firm for trying to collect on something that they were never informed they're not allowed to collect on. Anyway, so a lot of people in Los Angeles were starting to catch on to this. Not all the technical details of it, but just the fact that you can throw them in the trash and never hear from them again. And for the most part, you were good and you didn't have to worry about the police coming for you, right? People were doing this. And so they started losing money. I think it was something like 80 or 90% of the tickets, nobody was ever appearing. So they couldn't collect any money except for 10 or 20%, which basically means that they lost 80% of their profit. Whatever. So they had to start taking the cameras down because they didn't even actually own the cameras. They were leasing them from the company who made the cameras because, okay, let's say I make cameras. Would I like to sell you one camera for, $5,000? Or would I like to rent it to you for $3,000 every month? It makes more sense just to rent them, right? So the city didn't even own the cameras. They couldn't afford to pay the $3,000 to these companies anymore because they weren't bringing in the revenue. Now, of course, they could have paid for it with other stolen money, but when it comes up in a budget hearing, it doesn't really look good. And the bottom line is, well, it's not profitable, really. So why not just go steal money? So they started taking these cameras down. Long story short, a lot of places in Los Angeles and California don't have these cameras now because of this. Some places still do, but So I asked Steven about this. Big tangent there. I asked Steven about why don't people just do this I think he's in New Jersey. Why don't they just do this up there? And basically what he was saying is that the government is actually saying if you don't show on a ticket that you were never served, they will suspend your license and confiscate your property, your car, right? Now, to some people, I know the justification going on in a statist mind. Oh, well, if he would have just paid the ticket, he wouldn't have to worry about getting his car confiscated. That's not the issue here. Let's say, for example, somebody wanted to pay the ticket if they knew about it, but they never got it in the mail because for some reason it got lost in the mail. But then they get stopped by a police officer, and the police officer says, well, you didn't pay the ticket, so I have the right to confiscate your car. Is that fair? Did he get due process? I mean, this is like a law-abiding statist who would happily pay the fine if he knew about it, but he didn't know about it. Is that the free country you want to live in? And so yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And so this is a violation of that Fair Debt Collections and Practices Act. So I talked to him, and I've been trying to connect with one of the lawyers out there to see if anyone's willing to do like a class action lawsuit on that. I found that a lot of lawyers don't really know how powerful that this law is, but I mean, I can tell you the way I've used it as just an ordinary Joe Blow, not bar certified hobby attorney. Someone with a bar license could probably do a lot more damage than I could. Anyway, so yeah, that's something. If anyone knows a good lawyer in New Jersey that wants to talk about that, especially on the show, that would be pretty awesome. But anyway, so like I said, Steven, I guess couldn't make it today, so we're gonna try to reschedule that for another time. But I do know one thing. If he were here, he would probably say,
taxation is theft.
Okay, so I just had to keep throwing that in there. Because someone said I don't say taxation is theft enough on this show, which, I don't know, I guess I should have like that's what I need. I need to get like an alarm clock that says taxation is theft every 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to pop over and see if there are any last comments, and then I'm going to get out of here for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully I'll keep doing these. Like I said, I'm upgrading. I got a cool microphone now. The software, I'm starting to get a little bit of hang of it. I finally got the call-ins working, even though nobody called in today. I guess I didn't give out the number for that, but that was because Steven didn't show up. So, somebody just posted this cool picture of a lighter that has taxation is theft engraved on it. Who is this? Michael. That's awesome. Is that yours? I need to get one of those. Angel says, awesome shirt. He is from Los Angeles, I believe. Yeah, because you're friends with Frank, right? Yeah, you're a Californian out there. And I know you've got some of the same issues I've got. Let's see. So, Louisiana will do the license suspension. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. So this is actually often a problem. This is just going back into the tickets, unpaid tickets for a minute. If you have unpaid tickets, they can suspend your license in some cases without due process. And this is actually they do this in a lot of circumstances, but you have to consider the main reason for this. Why can the government suspend your license without any due process? And the answer is because it's a contract with a clause that we can suspend it for any reason. It's kind of like if you got cable with your cable company, and in the fine print it says, or actually here's a better example. Facebook gives you an account for free, and in the fine print it says if you do something that we disagree with, we're going to terminate your account. This happens to people all the time, where they at least get suspended. The government does the same thing, because you're going to them and asking them for a license. Now, of course, the free thought school of things would say, okay, yeah, but who cares about a license? We don't need a license to drive, right? It's a right. It's not a privilege like they tell us. And so, yes, that's true, according to the law anyway. But if you get stopped by a police officer, it's not so easy to get away with that. I mean, you can't break out the law books. You can't, they're not going to listen to it. They're trained to do one thing. Step 1, turn on lights. Step 2, get on the speaker and tell someone to pull over to the side of the road. Step 3, go to the car, ask for license, registration, and proof of insurance. Step 4, write ticket. Now, if any of these steps are missing license, okay, well, then they have a different set of steps. Step 1, write ticket for not having license, or maybe step one is to arrest the person. Oh, check this out. I got a surprise for you guys. Ooh. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Steven's trying to call me. It's not working. Hold on. Let me see if I can send him a message. Okay, so, oops. Okay, Steven just sent me a message. I'm guessing he's free. Let's see if we can get him on. Bear with me for a second. I'm gonna see if I can get him to call in here. Let's see. I totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about before? I had no idea. Yes. How they can suspend your license. Okay, so now there's a caveat to this. If you have an account with Facebook and you piss off Facebook, Facebook can close your account. If you have an account with Facebook and you piss off MySpace, MySpace cannot shut down your Facebook account, right? So what does this mean? If you have a license in one state and you get tickets in another state, that other state cannot suspend your license. Now they can try sending a letter to your home state, and and some states might have agreements, but they can't just go and cancel your license in another state. Hey Steven.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I've got you on Facebook Live right now. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Awesome. So hopefully everyone can hear you, but so I've been broadcasting for a little bit, and I kind of gave a little bit of a background on your story, but if you want, you can just jump right in and kind of give your version of it.
All right, my version of it is, after I brought attention to the issue, lawyers that got involved obtained a Supreme Court order to show who were the engineers that signed off on these short yellow light intersections. Through Supreme Court order, we realized that no engineers signed off on the traffic signals or the cameras. So when people are getting killed in these intersections, there's no responsible charge for their engineering malpractice, which caused their deaths. And that's what's going on in our county.
Right. So this has been going on for a pretty long time, right?
Well, long enough that people have died and nobody's been held responsible.
And so, I guess what's I don't know. It's we're still looking at a scenario where the government's sitting here trying to make money, and they're causing people to die from this, and they really don't seem to care. Like, that doesn't stop them.
Exactly in a nutshell.
So
the federal government refuses to get involved. We need the federal government to get involved. Our state and local officials are unwilling to do anything. Our legislators that are willing to do something are outnumbered by Democratic legislators refusing to acknowledge that there is an issue. And the Republican legislators that do recognize that lights have been shortened and people's lives have been lost, they're outnumbered by Democrats who are unwilling to recognize this as an issue. And their campaigns are getting funded by basically camera money. And that's what's going on.
Right. So we were talking earlier about how, in some of these cases, you've got people who they're trying to sue the government, because they've lost somebody or whether it's a minor accident or something where I think you said even some pedestrians had died from it. They're trying to sue the government, but what's actually happening with that?
Well, they're basically, we caught Xerox changing their name to another company right now. They're trying to hide assets because they know that we're going to win and people are going to be held accountable to these wrongful deaths through engineering malpractice. And Xerox has changed their names a couple of times, actually, and we're posting that on Facebook so that people could see exactly what they're trying to do to hide their assets so that it can't be taken by the families of those who have died from the short yellow light intersections.
Right, and the people who are winning right now, so some people are winning some of these lawsuits and they're getting paid out, but that's all coming from the taxpayer, right?
And it's also not coming from police states like New York. In states like New York or Long Island and Suffolk County, New York, where all the judges are cross-endorsed, it's that much harder to win because the camera money is also funding the judges' campaigns. New York in 66, 67.
Right.
So, yeah, the judges' campaigns, all the campaigns are being funded by camera money. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, all the camera money is funding all the campaigns. And it has to be very few politicians or legislators that aren't being funded by camera money. And we do have that in Suffolk County, but we're talking like 5 legislators to like 15 legislators that are being funded by camera money. So it is an uphill battle.
Right. So, and yeah, this kind of comes back full circle to something I always talk about, which is, when you have, when the government is basically allowed to pay for any of its problems with your money and my money, they really don't care. Like, they don't care if they get sued, right?
Right. They do not care if they get sued. They're getting sued from multiple different parties, and they do not care. They grant themselves indemnity and indemnification for the prosecutors, and they do not care if they're being sued because they've already granted themselves indemnification.
Right. So, what do you see? Well, tell me about some of the things that you're doing, because I know you're still fighting this.
Well, I've been pointing at the intersections where people are getting killed before they get killed, and then when they do get killed, the politicians look like the criminals that they actually are to the general public because they've been told on record numerous times about these intersections before the accidents do take place so that they actually do look like they are turning a blind eye to this engineering malpractice before it actually causes the loss of life. And the public knows exactly what's going on. Not to mention my personal business and residents have been attacked by politicians in the sense where I have gotten thousands and thousands of dollars worth of code violations on my personal residences and my business residences just as vengeance because I exposed what was going on with the short yellow light intersections. So they have made a personal vendetta against me because of the fact that I showed the public the engineering malpractice which is taking place on intersections.
Right, and that's insane. And so I think the last time I talked to you was a few months ago. You were still running for it was a state senate, right?
Right. Well, I lost the Senate race, and now I'm just exposing the corruption and the engineering malpractice which is taking place.
Right.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah, and I mean, thanks for everything you're doing, man. I mean, that's I know you're on the front line. You're really putting a lot at risk to do all this.
They did steal my dog. They stole my dog. They attacked my business, my personal residence. They ransacked one of my houses. They put cameras in front of my personal residence to watch every move I make. I went on a box truck and I painted those cameras. So they removed them one day later. But yeah, they definitely are making their presence felt.
Right. So what do you see as a good solution to this problem?
Honestly, I think the public has to rise up and chop down the red light cameras. If the public was to grow some courage and to chop down the red light cameras, the government would know where we stood. But by sitting complacent and lame and letting them abuse us and take the lives of our children, you honestly get what you actually asked for. And by not doing anything, you are asking for tyranny. You are asking for the government to manipulate our traffic signals for revenue and for lives to be lost.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this too. Like, I mean,
Think about it. They charged me with 20 felonies. They had 20 felonies charged against me for crimes that they did not catch me doing. I admitted to doing it. I turned myself in for committing 20 felonies, for which I got 1 year of probation because they would not let me take it to trial. Because in New York, they said, we will not allow your evidence on trial. We will only allow our evidence for your prosecution. So they said, you better take the 1 year of probation, otherwise we're going to railroad you and give you 130 years in jail. So I took 1 year of probation for 20 felonies. If that doesn't spell it out for you, come on, guys, really. You're not going to do anything? Our kids are being taken for revenue. Our lives are being lost for revenue. Accidents have skyrocketed, and the public is doing nothing about it.
Man, you got that right. Yeah, and it's really tough to get people to basically have the balls and get out and do what the types of things that you're doing, because of course that puts everybody else at risk.
I admitted to 20 felonies. I got 1 year of probation. With the amount of corruption I exposed, I got 1 year of probation. So if you're not willing to put 1 year of probation on the line to save your family member, your friend, or your neighbor's life, then come on, what are we? We can't call ourselves Americans. It's a joke. What are we? We're selfish. That's all we are, selfish. If we're not willing to put our 1 year of probation at risk for all the lives being lost, then what are we more than selfish? We're nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an excellent point. Someone's, I think someone's saying they might not be able to hear you. Yeah, I mean, it really is tough, and I think part of your agreement was that you wouldn't mess with any more of the cameras anymore, right?
But that was high.
You're gonna do it anyway?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always thought a great idea would be, a paintball gun in the middle of the night.
No, paintball guns are no good.
No?
Paintball guns suck. Nah, they suck. They don't shoot straight. If they shot straight, it would be different if it was paintball pellets or something, or if the barrels were rifled, it might be different. But paintballs don't work. They don't fly straight enough.
Well, we got a lot of engineers out there, and maybe we can find someone who can figure that out. I saw some guy doing some pretty good long range headshots with paintball pellets. So,
I tried it with paintballs, and I'm a good shot, and I couldn't do it.
Right, or actually, I guess the new trend is drones with spray paint with spray guns on them.
No. Listen, I would recommend. You know how at Halloween you take the shaving cream and you melt it so it shoots in a stream?
Yep.
That's all you need to do.
All right.
Those cameras are only about 11, 12 feet high, and you can easily shoot them with shaving cream from a melted tip.
Okay, cool. All right, so there's some advice for you. So if you live in one of these cities where these cameras start showing up, go for it. Try not to get caught. Don't stand around too long. And do you have any advice for someone who wants to just do it and book it?
Well, I would recommend doing it right in front of the police, because you will find out that the police hate the cameras.
Really?
Yes, the police hate the cameras. They will not cuff you. They will not arrest you. They will only applaud you.
That's awesome. Okay, that's something that's new information that I never would have guessed.
Yes, it's the truth. They never cuffed me. They only thanked me.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's see. Sorry, I'm just checking something over here on my end. So is there anything else you want to tell anyone? Or actually, here, do you have a website or anything, or a Facebook page that you want to plug?
Yeah, I do. The Facebook page is Stephen Ruth. It's on Facebook. You can also Stephen Ruth, Red Light Robin Hood, I believe it is. What's my Facebook?
Let's see.
I think it's Red Light Robin Hood. I think it's Bell Red Light Robin Hood. But you can find me, give me my mugshot with a red shirt on Facebook, and you'll see all the evidence that we've exposed regarding the short yellow lights and the Department of Transportation. This is the New York State Department of Transportation sending their crews out to shorten our yellow lights. We have the evidence of it.
Right.
And also, Stephen Ruth, /Red Light Robin Hood. And we release all the evidence on my Facebook page. And like I said, we caught the Department of Transportation in New York sending their crews out to shorten our yellow lights just to increase revenue to the county and with complete disregard for our safety. And yes, lives have been lost. They absolutely do not care. They're only order takers. They do not have brains for themselves to think to themselves what they are doing. They just take orders and follow orders. And this is what's going on in our county and our state.
Yeah, that's
By
pretty...
the way, if you're living in New York, I recommend get out of New York before it's too late.
Yeah, I don't know. You think New York's ahead of California or behind them?
I don't know, but I recommend getting out of New York before it's too late. New York's in a bad situation.
All right, that's some good advice. I recommend the same for California. I got out of there a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I heard New York, California is very bad as well.
Yeah. I'm kind of out of questions for you. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. Any of your experiences with this whole thing.
To give you an idea, last time I'm at my friend, I'm at New York. I'm at one of the jails in New York right now to go and visit one of my friends in jail. And last time I came here, I had a warrant for my arrest, and the sheriff said they don't care that I have a warrant for my arrest. I'm welcome to go visit my friend in jail because they support me. They want me to continue to try and remove the red light cameras. They know the cameras are a disgrace. And even though I had a warrant for my arrest, they absolutely allowed me to visit my friend in jail with no problems and leave with no problems with a warrant for my arrest the last time I was here. And I'm rolling up to the gate right now as we speak, and I'm going to visit my friend in jail.
That's awesome. And you said you had the support of a lot of the EMTs also.
Yeah, all the EMTs speak out against the cameras. They know that the accidents have skyrocketed since the installation of the cameras.
Wow. All right, man.
Yeah,
well,
there's tons of evidence. The county of Suffolk hides the evidence for 2 or 3 years for the red light camera program so that the public doesn't see that the accidents have skyrocketed. And not to mention they scrub the data when they do release it so that everyone thinks that the cameras are reducing accidents, but actually the accidents have skyrocketed. So that's why they withhold the evidence for more than 2 years before they release it.
Right. Have you done any have you recorded the yellow lights to time them?
Yes, I record the yellow light times. I do put them on Facebook. So if you want to find me on Facebook, it's Stephen Ruth /Red Light Robin Hood.
Awesome. What kind of times do you see on those yellow lights? Are they like half as long as they should be, or like just a little bit shorter?
Exactly. They're about half as long as they should be. In 55 mile an hour speed zones, you see 3-second yellow lights.
Wow. Yeah, so basically, they don't give you enough time to stop, so people think they can make the light, and then all of a sudden you get cars going in the other direction or pedestrians crossing the street, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. People get killed.
Yeah, so I just want you people to think about that a little bit, because I know a lot of people are out there saying, yeah, well, our those cameras are there for our safety, or all these rules that they come up with and all these fines that they give us, they're there for our safety. They're not.
Not at all.
This is just
money grab.
Yeah, this is like, and I know some people are gonna say, oh, but this is just one example, but no, this is like one of the most obvious, egregious cases of it, but this is, it's the same purpose for everything. These taxes are not for our safety. These rules are not for our safety. It's all about revenue collection. So, all right, Stephen. Well, thanks for calling in.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Anytime you want to call in and talk, you're welcome to.
Just reach out and I'll be happy to call in.
Awesome. Sounds good.
You're welcome. Have a great day, brother.
All right, you too, man. I'll catch you later.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, so so he came in right at the end. So perfect. I'm glad you guys got to listen to him a little bit. He's really awesome. He really does believe in what he's doing, and it really takes a lot of balls to go out and do that. He said he's not really scared of the police because the police aren't really out there to get him. It sounds like it's more of some of the city government officials. But still, it's scary to want to get that involved with something. I don't know. I screw with the system, but I kind of do it from a distance, just to kind of stay safe. And that's the way I'd recommend doing it as well. So, but like he said, he had some advice for, if you want to mess up some of those cameras. I can't tell you that I'm telling you to do it. I can only say if I were going to tell you to do it, that I would probably tell you to do it. But I'm not telling you to do it. Anyways, I think that's about it for today. Thank you everyone who came in and listened and asked questions and posted some dank memes and everything else. And, there is one last thing.
Taxation is theft.